everybody. It is I. I am the Nomad. Yes, I don't have a home. I just have a temporary residence here in the hovel that you call Earth. I hope that everybody's having a good day. But I've got some comments and some issues with things that are going on in the world. And I'm going to discuss this, and I'm going to discuss this from a conservative's point of view. Yes, I am a conservative. I am not a Republican. Understand the difference. A Republican is somebody who is part and has joined the Republican Party. I have not. It does not mean that I don't support certain Republican politicians. That doesn't mean that I don't support anybody. What it means is I'm a conservative. And I'm not a neoconservative, right? And nor am I a Neolithic conservative or a caveman conservative, as some people think. People don't understand what being a conservative is all about. But I'll let you decide what kind of conservative you want to use as far as calling me whatever pejorative that many of you will come up to talk to me about. Now, I'm not going to go into my background. I'm just going to get right to this. Let's start right away. All right. What we have here is a series of announcements, okay, in the north, in Belarus, announcing that there were explosions. Now, what does this mean? Well, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean that an explosion, a large explosion happened that everyone heard. It could be that there's been a type of terrorist attack. It could mean that this is Russian disinformation and that this is a false flag attack. All of that's possible. We don't know. We don't know, as you can hear probably some of the noise in the background. We don't know whether or not what's going on here, right? But this is the Ukraine. These are reports from the Ukraine. All right, with live map. And as you can see, as we rotate this forward and then take a little look here, you can see that the Russian forces are solidifying a hold around Kiev, or Kiev, however you want to pronounce it. You can see that they're now trying to push further south in an effort to cut this logistical line. There's been a lot of fighting. Yesterday, especially, the Ukrainians counterattacked. And there were a series of counterattacks across the country trying to push the Russian forces in these areas back. Now, I don't know exactly what the operation was expected to achieve, but quite frankly, it looks like it had very limited success in this counterattack operation mounted by the Ukrainians. In this eastern part, at the moment, it is fairly quiet, but you can see that the Russian forces are expanding, especially in this direction toward Kiev. Well, I'm sorry, not Kiev, but Odessa. Odessa's right here. It's very possible that the Russians are going to attempt to take Odessa. Now, one of the things that's preventing them from doing that is right here. What you have here is Mariupol. And there's been a lot of fighting around Mariupol. The Russians have, for all intents and purposes, cut this off from the rest of the Ukraine. This is now a siege operation in Mariupol. There's been a lot of death. There's been a lot of destruction. There is no attempt to break out. You can see right here that the mayor of Melitopol, I'm not trying to butcher the name, Fedorov, was exchanged for 9 Russian conscripts, which means 9 Russian troops, I assume. And that there's heavy fighting in this area. Now, when I talk about heavy fighting, I'm not talking door-to-door fighting, because that's not what the Russians are trying to do. The Russians are just surrounding these major cities, and they're going to slowly strangle them with artillery. And they'll move forward a little bit, and wherever they feel that there is a point where they're getting resistance, they will attack it. And they will use artillery, and they will use airstrikes, all right, to try and pacify this area. This would be a major loss to the Ukrainians if they lose this city. However, it's not as important, obviously, as it would be losing Kiev. Up here. In addition, as part of this operation to strangle Kiev, you have Cherniv. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. There was heavy fighting yesterday along this in an attempt to push the Russians back. It has failed. For all intents and purposes now, Cherniv is surrounded. It doesn't look like it on this map, but if you take a look at all the major roads and inlets in and out, they're all controlled by the Russians. So therefore, the ability to reinforce this area is now quite limited. All right? Because you would have to get through a Russian enclave in order to do it. Or you would have to fly these things in. All right? And whether anybody likes to admit this or not, the Russians have air superiority. They have not established air supremacy, however. Now, why am I bringing up the Ukraine? It's on everybody's mind. Zelensky earlier today went to our Congress and said, "Oh, we need jets. We need MiGs." Well, we can't give you MiGs. We don't build MiGs. It's a platform we don't build. But Nomad, I can hear it now. But Nomad, but the other NATO countries, some of the other NATO countries have MiGs. Sure. Poland has MiGs. Is Poland willing to give them over? They went out of their way to say, well, we'll let NATO decide that. And then it came down to, well, we'll let the United States decide that. Which means we'll let Biden, the bumbler, decide that. And Biden, the bumbler, said no. Now, before somebody says that all he is a bumbling buffoon, all right, there is actually a good reason why nobody wants to give the Polish MiGs over to the Ukrainians. And that is very simply the fact that it would leave Poland open. Poland has a border with Belarus and with Russia. Don't forget this. There's an enclave up here. It's one of the reasons I love this map. This is a complete Russian enclave here. It's not Belarusian. This is Russian. This is part of Russia. And yes, it has a number of military forces in it. Poland would be facing a front initially from Belarus on over, okay? If it tried to give the MiGs over, all right, and the Russians decided to say, well, that's pretty provocative, we're going to attack. The Russians have already struck several places here in the west of the Ukraine, which at this point in time was actually being left alone for the most part. But they did strike it. They struck a military base, specifically, killed 38 people. Now, the United States, especially the United States General Milley, all right, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, "Oh, no, that strike there, we weren't sending weapons or anything through that area. So when we were sending weapons, it's still continuing." No, they hit that area because of the logistics capabilities, all right, of the Ukrainians to prevent them, or to at least slow down the amount of U.S. weapons that are flowing into the Ukraine right now. Specifically, what they're trying to stop are the anti-tank missiles and also the anti-aircraft missiles. the Stingers, which are wreaking, quite frankly, havoc on their helicopter forces. And the odd MiG that gets too low. So these things exist. These are issues, all right? But one of the things I want to talk about is the Ukrainians are fighting for their lives. There's no doubt about that, especially Zelensky. Okay? Putin wants Zelensky gone. Now, does Putin want to totally invade and occupy the Ukraine? No, he doesn't. For one thing, he does not have the forces to attempt to occupy it to that degree. What he wanted to do was the Donbass region in the east of the country. He wanted to secure that, and yes, he will annex that area. Right? He wants to finish the annexation of the Crimea. Right? If you want to understand what's going on right through here, he wants to annex all of this. Now, you can say that, why would he want to annex all this stuff? Well, this area is heavily ethnically Russian. That's one reason. The other reason is, quite frankly, is it puts pressure upon the Ukraine by taking away all their water ports. Their ability to do shipping through the Black Sea, this whole area, for all intents and purposes, becomes a contested lake with Turkey. So if you don't have to worry about the Ukrainians, then you only have to worry about the Turks from a Russian perspective. So he's not trying to seize the entire country. He will attempt to seize Kyiv. There's history there. That might be one of the reasons why he's attempting to go so hard at Kyiv. I don't know if that's the only reason, though. I do know that, like this, they are starving these areas. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to starve these populations out. One of the problems that the Ukraine has is they're very, very vulnerable to this. Once you surround the city, the people have got to eat. People in the city have to eat. If you can't get food to them, how are they going to eat? And the Russians have been preventing any kind of access, quote-unquote humanitarian access with food and supplies to these cities. They are not allowing it. So the people are going to starve. And they're just going to lay siege with starvation, slowly tightening it up day by day, without really risking a whole lot. Yes, they'll still take casualties. Yes, the Ukrainians are fighting as hard as they can. But as you can see, yesterday they initiated an offensive. The Ukrainian offensive is no longer in effect. You can just look at the map and see that the Ukrainian offensive has now stalled to try and push back these regions, and the Russians will continue to creep forward with overwhelming superior firepower. So when somebody's telling you that Putin's going to die, that Putin's going to get assassinated by the other Russian oligarchs, that Putin's on his way out, that the people are rising up, I'm sorry, you're misreading the situation. And you're misreading the man if you think he's running around fearful under a bunker. That's not who he is. That's not who he has been. And anybody who thinks that that's what's going on, you're just being silly. Now, will the Russian people suffer under this kind of regime? Sure, definitely. But the one thing that you have to understand with the Ukrainians is you can't look at the Ukrainians, you can't look at Zelensky and say that this guy is a Democrat. That this guy, when I say Democrat in this case, I'm not talking about Democrat as in the Democratic Party. I'm talking about as a Democrat that he believes in democracy. He doesn't. He is as corrupt as Putin is. His group of cronies are no less corrupt. They have an oligarchic system very similar, by the way, to the Russian Duma. So to say that these guys are westernized, now they want to move west, they want to move toward the west. The problem is that everything is so corrupt here. There's corruption up and down. We don't even have to. All you have to do is look at Biden. Look at Hunter Biden's deals, folks. It doesn't take much to understand this. It truly doesn't. It truly doesn't take much. Now, it's not going all the way of the Russians. Ukraine claims serious blow to Russia with liquidation of another top general. The Ukraine has killed another Russian general in a further serious blow to the morale of the invading forces, a government advisor said Wednesday. General Oleg Mityayev died Tuesday during the storming of Ukraine's most devastated city, Mariupol, according to the Interior Ministry advisor Anton Gershenko. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. I'm not trying to butcher this. Who later posted a picture of the body. Mityayev would be at least the fourth general killed in the invasion, which Kremlin officials are reportedly calling a complete cluster F. Right? Now, taking out the leadership is something that causes delays. There's no doubt about that. It does have an effect. All right? It is a positive, it is a positive kind of thing. However, I think there's something more at play here that's really got to be understood. And it's really, I don't want to say it's good news, all right? But it shows you what you're dealing with, all right? And that is, with the Russians losing these generals, why are the generals in harm's way? To this degree, right? The reason a general goes up to the front, now he could be a glory hound. He won't lead him from the front and all that. That's always something that people talk about. There's a reason you want to lead from the front. That's what a leader is. Lead means you're in the front. But there's another aspect to this, and that is there have been a lot of reports about Russian morale breaking and that entire units, right, have disintegrated. Now, this is all coming from sources that are Ukrainian, so we don't know how accurate they are. But I would venture to say, from watching how these situations are going about, taking place, that yes, there is an issue with morale of the Russian troops. And there's a good reason for that. When you are engaged in a siege, people think that the besiegers are living high on the hog. But from a military perspective, to keep morale high, to keep morale discipline in check for your besieging forces, it's you want your officers to periodically make reviews to ensure that morale and discipline are maintained. And we already know that there's an issue with this because we have already seen it. And what I mean by that is you've seen overreaction by their military forces on the ground toward a perceived civilian threat where they have wiped out civilians that really weren't a threat to anybody. This is a problem. So if you want to minimize civilian casualties or non-combatant casualties, that's a better way of putting it, then you're going to have to keep your troops in line. This is very difficult to do, and it doesn't matter what the army is. The United States' armies have overreacted, all right, in certain situations where discipline broke down. Every country in the world has seen their military forces overreact in certain situations when they get out of control. And when life doesn't mean anything, which is the way you approach it on a battlefield, unfortunately, it's very easy for people to just say F it and just go off and do whatever the hell they want. There have been reports of rape and pillaging taking place from the Russian forces. When people have no regard for life because you're at war, and in those situations, that's going to lead to this. If you can't maintain discipline, then there's going to be problems. And quite frankly, with the Russians, it's more critical. Why? Because the Russian forces are not made up of a unified kind of force as we think of them. They are made up of little enclave forces, such as we're going to send a whole unit of quote-unquote Chechens into an area. The American Armed Forces don't say, I'm going to send a whole bunch of Californians to an area. Not from the Armed Forces perspective. From National Guard, yes. All right? I'm not saying that we don't have National Guard elements. But you have to keep tight rein on them because they are the least disciplined of your forces. This is one of the reasons why we in the United States tend to utilize National Guard in the rear and logistical areas more than we have them, quote unquote, at the tip of the spear or the front. But there's more news on this front, all right? And some of it is actually good. And here's a nation that is an ally of the United States. And I say this because it's a huge difference. Japan to revoke Russia's most favored nation status over the Ukraine. Japan will strip Russia of its most favored nation status to punish Moscow for its aggression in the Ukraine, following in the footsteps of the United States and European nations. Oh no, not all the European nations have agreed with this, and we'll get to that a little bit later. To hold Russia accountable for its irrational, inhumane onslaught, Japan will take the additional sanctions by expanding the scope of asset freezing targeting elites and business oligarchs close to Vladimir Putin, he said. Now, I'll be honest with you, that aspect of it is silly. But taking away their most favored nation status is actually something that does hurt Russia across the board. Now, this is in stark contrast to our supposed ally, Germany, all right, which has refused to ban Russian oil and gas because they're too, well, quite frankly, they're too dependent on it. They're terrified. What are they doing to help the Ukraine? Oh, we gave them a few Stinger missiles. So in other words, you gave them the missiles from the United States. How about promising Poland that you'll sit up there and replace all of their fighters, their MiGs that they send over to the Ukraine? Why don't you get the German Tornadoes and place them all on alert in Poland right now? Why aren't there German pilots, all right, as part of NATO, making sure that Poland is secured? Well, I happen to know why. The reason is because Germany isn't an ally. They're a parasite. Militarily, they have nothing that they can actually add to this. At this point in time, they are woefully unprepared for war. It's estimated that less than a quarter of their quote-unquote listed airframes are actually capable of flying right now. Of the 2,500 supposed battle tanks that they have, main battle tanks, the Leopard 2s, approximately 200 of them, between 150 to 200 of them, are actually capable, all right, of combat. All right, full combat readiness. That's less than 10%. That's not an ally. That's a parasite. And you see here the heat in my voice. And that's because it wasn't that long ago when a president stood up there and told the Europeans that they had to start paying up and start getting serious about their own defense. And what did we get from the mainstream media? Oh, the evil orange man is bad. Oh, he's dissing our wonderful ally. Well, we're our wonderful allies now. You know what they're doing right now? They're shivering their boots. Wait, well, please, keep us safe, America, from the great Russian bear. We can't defend ourselves. They can't defend themselves, folks. Between 30 to 50% of all gas used, and I'm not talking about gasoline, I'm talking about fuel, gas for their electrical plants, comes from Russia. And of course, we can't make our people, freeze. We can't ask our own people to suffer. So much for supporting the Ukrainians. Only America has to suffer, according to Biden. We're going to have to pay higher fuel costs, and we're going to have to pay higher energy costs, all because these other... Why? Why, Biden? Because you got some fantasy that, just like the Europeans did, that we can do it with oil. We get rid of oil, and we can put up wind farms, and we can put up solar plants, and we'll be energy independent with solar and green energy. Can't have nuclear. Can't have nuclear. Meanwhile, one of the Russian Duma members, urges Putin to fire a nuclear missile at the United States to send a message. Russian Duma member Yurgey Alekseevich, I'm not going to continue to butcher the name, has claimed America would not retaliate if Russia fired a ballistic missile at them, with casualties of roughly 10,000 predicted by the politician. A warped Russian politician has called on Vladimir Putin to launch a ballistic missile at the Nevada test range in America to send a message. The comment comes from Russia's Duma member Fedorov, who claims the Western nations are acting on the assumption that Putin has no trump cards left in his hand. One potential trump card, Fedorov said, could be a nuclear strike on a Nevada test site, which he believes would not see a retaliation from the United States. Okay? There would be a retaliation from the United States. Biden wouldn't want it. I'll agree that Biden's weak. I'll agree that Biden would cry and whine, but his hand would be forced. There's certain things about different national characteristics that I don't think that people understand. Okay? And one of the national characteristics of the United States is that we are a vengeful people. We've always been. Revenge is all you have to do is take a look at our media. Revenge, for the most part, is applauded. Now, it's tempered, but for the most part, throughout our media, all you have to do is watch any movie you want to pull up, right? If there's a revenge scene in it, people are cheering about the person who gets revenge for the damage that's been done to them. It's a part of our characteristic. You launch a frickin' nuclear missile at us, you can expect nuclear missiles back. And you can expect the United States forces to go on. You might only get one nuclear missile back. That might be true. But it isn't going to be just a tit-for-tat kind of thing, because the rest of the United States military will move at that point. Unfortunately. So a jackass with this kind of mentality is just that. He's a jackass with this mentality. And as far as parasites go in Europe, here's another one of our stalwart freaking allies supposedly. France denies violating sanctions with Russia arms sales. The Paris Defense Ministry on Monday denied that France breached European sanctions by continuing to sell military equipment to Russia after its 24 annexation of Crimea. Investigative journalism's outfit Disclosed reported that more than 152 million euros of gear had been approved for exports since 2015, citing both top secret documents and public sources. You see, we don't have allies in Europe. Britain is an ally, but they claim not to be European, so at least the many of them that I talk to don't want to be associated necessarily with Europe. So I'll give them that. Shout out to Jensen. So if you don't want to be European, we don't have any European allies. We have European parasites. Here's another example of our supposed ally backstabbing us. All right. Here's Macron talking to Putin. Well, you making another freaking arms deal? Well, Macaron? Macaroon? You making another arms deal? Huh, Cupcake? Is that what all these calls to Vlad were for? To make sure that he could continue to get French arms? Isn't it wonderful to have wonderful parasites like this? Ukraine rejects Russian peace talks. All right? Let's get to this. Ukraine today has rejected a Russian plan to become neutral like Sweden or Austria as the warring sides try to... What the heck is this? Come back here. As the warring sides try to hash out a deal to end the bloodshed in Eastern Europe. Now, quite frankly, well, the reason that this is being said no is it comes with other strings. The Russians are not being completely upfront with just this part of the deal. Moscow is thought to be demanding that the Ukraine refuse to join any military alliance or host any foreign military bases on its soil in exchange for a ceasefire and withdrawal of Russian troops currently terrorizing the country. But Kiev said that any deal will need to include security guarantees underwritten by international partners who would agree to come to the Ukraine's defense in the event that it gets attacked again. It's kind of reasonable from the Ukrainian point of view. When you think about it, the Ukrainians are here, they want to be secure. It's understandable. Now let's go back to the United States. We got a couple of stories here. Oh, sorry for the Babylon Bee. A parody site, folks. Not again. Smollett claims he was assaulted by two prison guards in MAGA hats. Smollett has been detained after his conviction pending his sentencing hearing, but he's already run into trouble, immediately claiming that two prison guards wearing MAGA hats attacked him while shouting, "This is MAGA country! I've been assaulted, I've been attacked, I feared for my life," Smollett said in a statement. "I was minding my own business, making license plates for Kamala Harris, and they came up to me wearing their red caps of hate. That's when I knew I was in trouble." "I barely escaped with my life." The latter revealed the two prison guards were actually two Nigerians, and Jesse isn't in prison yet. Well, to be honest, Jesse's not in prison anymore. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have a liberal judge who let this son of a bitch out of jail on $150,000 bond. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the disgraced Empire actor, Jussie Smollett, has been released from jail after just 6 days behind bars so he can appeal his conviction. Like he can't appeal it in jail. Somehow he can't appeal. Now, no one else gets this treatment. Nobody else is allowed. Well, once you're sentenced, you continue to serve your sentence no matter how many appeals you are running. But not Jesse. Not Juicy. See, Juicy's got privilege. LGBTQP RMYZ privilege. Smollett didn't speak as he left the county jail, was flanked by bodyguards as he walked out and into a waiting SUV. He was freed after posts that required $150,000 of personal recognition. I don't know how to say this. Recognizance. That's what it is. Recognizance bond. Nenyi Uchi, Smollett's lawyer, right, said that the actor had put his hands on the glass, separating him from his client, when the news was broken to him, and reacted with shock. He was shocked. He had nearly given up. He had spent just 2 days in with the general jail population and 4 in a psychiatric ward over fears of his mental well-being. The judge ruled that he should go free while his lawyers work on an appeal with his conviction of his 5 felony counts of lying to police about a racist and homophobic attack. He was jailed for 150 days and put in county lockup. There are several people that I know. I have several, I'll be honest with you, several friends who have spent time in prison for a variety of different things. And they've all said the same thing to me. County lockups are nothing compared to penitentiaries. The state pen and the federal pens are far more severe. He was the Cook County Jail. That's all he was in. That's what he was sentenced to. This guy is getting off again. All right. Why? Because he's a whiny little bitch. All right. Who is now a media darling. All right. And instead of what he should be looked at as a criminal, as a thug, which is what he is. Jussie Smollett was trying to create a race war in this country for his own personal reasons, to perpetuate the lie. To perpetuate racism. To perpetuate that it's okay to be a racist bigot as long as you got the right skin color or as long as you're the right sexual identity, I guess. The man's a narcissist. And he's evil. That's what he really is. He hasn't done anybody any good. It's all about him. No. He's an activist. He was trying to help it. Tell me who's actually helped. Really, tell me a group of people he's actually helped. And you guys in the LGBTQ people, QPMRSTMVZ community, your little alphabet soup communities, do you think you're all supporting him? You think this is all a joke? You think fake hate crimes? People talk about racial crimes and so forth in this country. And yes, there are racists. But the kind of racial bigotry that these people constantly talk about, how they've seen it all, I can tell you right now, from what I've seen so far, 80% to 90% of the quote-unquote racial hate crimes that people talk about don't exist or are not real. University of Missouri. That girl in California that was claiming that she got stopped because she was black until the actual recordings came out. Time after time after time. That's not saying that bad things don't happen. You got George Floyd. I don't think it happened because of his race, though. I honestly don't think that George Floyd's death was racial in any way, shape, or form. I don't think it was a racial hatred crime. Now they say that I shouldn't say they say, they actually convicted the officers. I personally would not have convicted those officers. Why? Because of the situation as it existed at that time. I'm sorry, but I don't think that hold, whether it was applied on him for 9 minutes or not, right, led to his death. I really don't. I think the drug overdose was the primary reason he died. The fact that he slammed a lot of drugs in his mouth and in his system in an attempt to avoid an arrest is what killed him. And his drug dealing buddy, all right, is the one who gave it to him. But we're going to ignore all that. Oh, no, it was a 9 minutes. The guy went into cardiac arrest because he overdosed on drugs, period. If he had not overdosed on drugs, with the cop doing the exact same thing, would he be alive today? Question. The answer is yes. I believe that. I believe that because the coroner's report tells me that. Now, should these guys be police officers? Different discussion entirely. But should they be in jail for murder? No, I don't believe they should be. Wonderful story here. Saudi Arabia executes 3 people while Boris Johnson discusses human rights abuses with leader Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh as the PM comes away without a deal to increase Gulf oil production to lower UK petrol prices despite very productive talks. You know what? At least they took Boris Johnson. At least they met with him. Biden can't even get him to pick up the phone. Boris Johnson insisted he pressed Saudi leader Mohammed bin Salman over his country's human rights abuses during a visit to the Gulf today, as Riyadh revealed it executed 3 more prisoners during the Prime Minister's short trip. Mr. Johnson faced criticism over his decision to visit the autocratic state to beg it to increase oil production in the hope that it will lower UK petrol prices and help British consumers hit by increases linked to the war in the Ukraine. It's not because of the war in Ukraine. It's because of green energy deals that you assholes have signed. And unfortunately, it's the same problem here where we've got a president who has gotten an all-out war on our energy sector, or in an effort to go, we're going to do green energy. Just buy an electric car, says our wonderful transportation secretary. That's the kind of solutions these morons come up with. Energy, like it or not, can't just be produced out of the air. And solar isn't going to fix it. And wind power isn't going to fix it. I know that harsh reality, is staring you in the face. There's only one true green energy that could actually fix these things, and that's nuclear power. And the greenies won't allow that either. Chernobyl! 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 That's all you hear from them. They got people so doggone terrified of nuclear power. And as bad as Chernobyl was, it still has killed less people right? As far as nuclear power as a whole, than any other energy sector, including hydroelectric. Oh yeah, and you're not going to do hydroelectric either. We know that as well. We know you're not going to do hydroelectric. You want to know how I know they're not going to do hydroelectric? Because every time somebody wants to build a dam somewhere, out come the freaking greenies going, there's the white-tailed spotted puffer that can't live in here because you're going to destroy the environment. The pygmy owls live here. They're not going to destroy another habitat. The snail darter can't live in the creek that's drying up. Because their agenda isn't about green energy. This is what a lot of these idiots don't understand. It's not about protecting the planet. Never has been. It's about attacking capitalism. It's about authoritarian methodologies to sit up there and tell people, you are the plebes, we're the ones in charge, you will do things our way. You can't have free, you can't do things on your own. We didn't let you do that. You're going to live like your ancestors did back in the 1800s, and if you don't like it, well, too doggone bad. I'm the king, I'm the queen. That's what they want to go back to. It's not about saving the planet, never has been. This is another example. Another group, the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Japan asked the UAE to stabilize crude oil markets. Japan has asked the United Arab Emirates on Tuesday to make proactive contributions as a major oil supplier, and the two agreed to work closely to help stabilize surging crude oil prices triggered by Russia's invasion. It was not because of Russia's invasion. After a phone call with the Dubai Crown Prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Prime Minister Kishida told reporters that Japan and the UAE, a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, will also seek closer coordination in responding to the crisis in the Ukraine. Great, wonderful, hooray! Another country that won't pick up the phone when Biden tries to talk because, Biden he's the adult. We got an adult in charge, and our world authority and our presence around the world is going to be respected. How do you like to respect now, assholes? All you leftist assholes that talked about all the lack of respect that Trump was, right? What kind of respect did they show Biden? They're showing Biden the next level down from what they were showing Obama when they were laughing behind Obama's back. And before people freaking forget about this, remember the back in the days when good old Obama was sitting there going, hey, tell Vlad that I'll have more room to maneuver after the election. Tell Vlad, Medvedev. Remember that? No. But here's the evil orange man. He was a Russian puppet. You want to know who the Russian puppets are? They're right now. You're seeing them all. Seeing them all in office right now. Seeing all the Democrats in office right now, they're all freaking Russian puppets because they all believe in Russia. They all believe in communism. But here's even a worse thing. Saudi Arabia considers accepting the yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oils. Saudi Arabia is in active talks with Beijing to price some of its oil sales to China in yuan. People familiar with the matter said a move that would dent the U.S.'s dollar dominance in the global petroleum market. Okay, let me explain to you what this means so you guys understand this. There's something that used to be back in the day called the gold standard, right? The United States gold reserves, the United States dollar was backed by the gold reserves within the United States. It's one of the reasons why you couldn't buy and sell gold in the United States back in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s. I wonder how many people knew that. As an individual, you're not allowed to buy gold and bring it into the United States. back at that time frame. The reason for it was to make sure that the dollar stayed tied to the gold market. Well, somebody took us off the gold standard. His name was Nixon. And there's a lot of people who applaud Nixon for this. I'm not one of them. I'm not as anti-Nixon as many people are. That doesn't mean that I liked everything that Nixon did. Okay? But one of the things that Nixon did, right, is he took us off the gold standard. And by doing so, right, he allowed the dollar to begin fluctuating. So people looked around and said, what can the dollar be tied to? And they realized, even though it fluctuates, it could be tied to oil. So the United States dollar goes up and down, all right, with the price of oil. It's tied to the oil. That's why they call it the petrodollar. If China says, okay, we're no longer going to deal with when you buy oil that you have to use the U.S. currency, if they say, well, we'll just give it to the yuan, then the United States currency is completely fiat. And it's no longer tied to any commodity. Now, China has responded to this story and claimed that it didn't exist, that they weren't doing that they were not doing anything like that. We know this is a lie. We know this is a lie because this is something that China had proposed, all right, several years ago, and they've been working to try and get this overturned. They've been going out of their way to try and end the status of the petrodollar. So I don't believe when China says, no, we're not doing that. We haven't done anything like that. We're not trying to do that at all. They're a bunch of liars is what they are. China will do everything they can to try and harm the United States. And I honestly expect China to move fairly soon on Taiwan. They will try and move on Taiwan while everyone's looking at this. Right now, if you really want to know what the United States should be doing, we should be putting more and more troops in Taiwan. We should be putting more and more equipment into Taiwan. Because that's what we're going to be fighting. And Japan needs to be plussing up now too. Now hopefully they'll continue to do what they've been doing. Right? I'm hoping that Japan finally starts getting off its ass and actually starts pushing out the carriers they need to. Because they need to start helping us a bit more. Because our other allies have turned into parasites. Boston BLM leader, husband charged with fraud, conspiracy, in a federal indictment. This is serious, folks. A prominent Black Lives Matter leader of Boston and her husband have been charged with using $6,000 grant to take an at-risk youth, all right, to a Philadelphia retreat on themselves for a getaway to Maryland, restaurants and shopping sprees, among other things. Monica Cannon Grant, 41, founder of the nonprofit Violence in Boston. Nonprofit Violence in Boston, meaning she's going to be as violent as she wants to be. And her husband, Clark Grant, 38, were charged Tuesday in 18-count federal indictment. And it isn't just this $6,000 to take the at-risk youth to Philadelphia. It's far deeper than that, folks. And I mean far deeper. They've got them on a whole slew of things. This indictment is broad. These guys they're nothing but grifters. And that's, of course, the whole Black Lives Matter movement is nothing but grifters. That's all they've ever been. And, of course, what do? You get a liberal judge who goes, okay, well, even though you're indicted under all these things here, well, I'm going to let you go back to your work in the charity group. But you can't be near the money now. Released on her own recognizance again. The indictment charges them in connection with 3 separate schemes: defrauding donors, lying to mortgage applications, and illegally collecting about $100,000 in pandemic unemployment benefits, according to the Globe. But you start off with, oh, it was just $6,000 grant, because they know no one's going to read this far down into the storyline. This woman has been a grifter, and the whole Black Lives Matter movement has been a grifting movement. They don't care about black lives. Let me know when the BLM movement actually starts to demonstrate that they care about black lives. Show me when they stand up to all these freaking the Crips and the Bloods and everything else back in the hood. Show me where they actually make a difference in the hood. Show it to me. Show me where they're actually making a difference in violence against black people committed by other black people in the hood. Well, here's a statement, isn't it? China regrets U.S. push for human rights language in the Security Council resolution on South Sudan. A Chinese envoy on Tuesday regretted the push by the United States for human rights-related text in the draft of the Security Council resolution on the mandate renewal for the UN mission in South Sudan. China had to abstain in Tuesday's voting after the United States, the pen holder on South Sudan, refused to make revisions, said Dai Bing, China's deputy permanent representative to the United Nations. Oh, that'll work it. Strong words for the South Sudan. Why don't you use those strong words on China? Oh, we can't really do that, can we? Nope, can't do that. Can't have anything like that going on. You know what the Senate is good for? You know what the United States Congress is good for, folks? They actually did something that I actually totally agree with and can get behind. The Senate unanimously approves making daylight savings time permanent. The Senate on Tuesday approved a proposal to make daylight savings time permanent, which, if passed in the House and signed by Biden, right, would mean that Americans would never again have to set their clocks back an hour or lose an hour in the afternoon of daylight in the fall and winter. It's about friggin' time. Here in Arizona, we don't have daylight savings time. We shouldn't be playing around with these clocks every now and then just for the sake of, well, look, we're going to do this. We're not saving candles and we're not saving electricity anymore. Because that was the excuse for creating daylight savings time. To save on candles and to save on electricity when electricity was just beginning in the 1919s and 1920s. Well, actually 1914, 1910s and so. That's what it was created for. There's no reason to do it now. There's no reason. Nobody benefits from this. Nobody benefits from it. Everybody hates it. It's bad enough when you have to deal with it, an international community trying to figure out what frickin' time they're on, especially when you do a daylight saving time stupidity, right? And other people in the world do it on a different date. Just to be contrarian, by the way. Not saying Americans are the brightest bulbs in the world, the sharpest tools in the shed. Nope. Because we get people like this. Florida man asked cops to test his meth. Concerned that the meth he had purchased was actually bath salts, a Florida man yesterday asked police to test his stash, a request that resulted in his arrest on multiple drug charges. This is a Mensa candidate. According to the investigation, Thomas Colucci, 41, dialed 911 last night and requested that the sheriff's deputy be dispatched to his residence in Spring Hill, a Tampa suburb. Colucci explained that he needed someone to test his methamphetamine he had just bought. All right, according to the Koichi explained that he needed someone to test it. All right, when the deputies met with Koichi, seen at the right, he explained that he purchased the meth from a man at a local bar, but after using some of the drug, Koichi became concerned that the substance was bath salts, a synthetic stimulant. Only in America do you dial 911 and have the cops arrive. Because the illegal substance that you bought might not be the right illegal substance. Turns out, no, it was meth. All right, let's get to the final story, folks. Final story they had today. Florida swim team practice interrupted by gator in the pool. A Florida school swim team practice was delayed when students discovered that the pool was already occupied by an alligator. Lake County Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook post that deputies responded to the Montverde Academy on a report of an alligator crashing the swim team's practice and refusing to vacate the pool voluntarily. He's just waiting to come on down. I'm going to get me a snack. So, just jump in the water. Yeah, that mess squirrel up the street, he told me that you guys kind of come in here and swim. Sooner or later, I'm going to get me one. The deputies used a safety hook to pull the 3-foot alligator closer to the edge. This is not even a huge gator. The gator's jaws were secured with electrical tape, and the reptile was taken to Lake Apatoka, where the tape was removed and the gator was released on its own recognizance. No injuries were reported. 3-foot alligator is nothing, folks. I mean, now if it was a 5-foot alligator or a 6-foot or a 10-foot, then I'd have been concerned. But I mean, come on, let's be honest. These kids were really not in any danger. That's not saying that you should let a gator just run around your pool. Question is just how close. How did the gator get into the pool? Most pools that I know of, they have fences. Did the gator climb the fence? And before people say, no man, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but gators can climb. Believe it or not, gators can climb those chain link fences. It's very possible how he got in there. All right, everybody, that's all the stories I got. Hope you all have a good day, and I will talk at you all later. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Bye-bye.